Cybercrime in 2016, a year in review. This is an initiative between Webroot and StorageCraft and is aimed at providing up-to-date and in-depth cybersecurity knowledge to our resellers and MSPs across the Asia-Pacific region. We hope that this will enable you to better communicate security risks to your customers and also become trusted advisors on their cybersecurity posture and their backup and recovery strategy. Just some quick housekeeping before we start. This webinar is being recorded and the link will be sent to you later on this evening. And all attendees are on mute, but feel free to type in any questions you have into the chat box and we'll do our best to address them at the conclusion of this session. Here's the agenda for today. Tyler will introduce headline-making cybercriminal events. Sorry about that, I'm not sure what just happened there. So we'll start off with Tyler. He'll introduce headline-making cybercriminal events and issues from the past year, and then he will discuss ransomware and go in depth into the latest and nastiest variants. Then I'll jump back into this at the end and talk about the applications for your businesses. So I guess without further ado, I'd like to pass this on to Tyler.
Hey everybody. I appreciate you joining in on our presentation. Let me go ahead and get this sorted out for you guys. Does that show up okay for you guys? Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Start out with just headlines of 2016. We're going to talk a little bit about Swift as far as hacking from banks. Very, very interesting. Basically, it wasn't just $81 million. That was a single transaction. That was the one that actually led to it being discovered. Many, many other transactions underneath that really weren't discovered, that were smaller amounts, still in the millions of dollars of money here that is very, very, very interesting. What kept it going so long that was the fact that they were able to, I don't know how or why this was even processed, but they were able to delete basically transaction logs. So there was even no footprint on their end that any transaction had been made to these accounts that they were stealing from. And it's very interesting that that they were able to steal this much, and it took $81 million being missing for them to look into this and sort of find out what exactly happened. Beyond that, we're corporate data breaches, a lot of cyber criminal activity, a lot of headline, and it's basically banks all around the world and top-of-the-line companies that we've all trust and known and use all the time. So some of the bigger ones, the Philippine Commission of Elections, that was actually the biggest, I believe, government breach, where 55 million people, which is an insane amount for a government to mishandle it this way. Also Snapchat, 700 current and former Snapchat employees had their personal information stolen. Obvious here is Yahoo. We don't even need to, this is disgusting. They two different hacking attempts previously. One for 500 million credentials, and what I mean is credentials meaning email passwords in plain text, and also the questions, all the security questions. So all of those were also gathered as well. One instance was 500 million, another instance was 1 billion. And what's even more shocking is the fact that Yahoo was unaware of it. In fact, it took a third party handed data from somebody else in the darknet, right, that they thought was Yahoo, and then that third party took it to Yahoo to confirm, and they like, okay, yeah, this is our stuff. It was grabbed years ago, like in 2012, and they would have had no clue otherwise. That was the only reason why it was disclosed now, is because it was brought to them now. So it took them this many long years. I mean, honestly, no one really should have faith in Yahoo at this point. No one should be using Yahoo. But you have to realize why this is a huge deal is because it's, even though Yahoo and their mail interface is garbage, the IP is what's valuable. Yahoo owns many, many, many different companies that are worth, millions of dollars. A big one is Tumblr. So when the Verizon deal with Yahoo it didn't actually affect it. I thought it would exit completely. No, they just took $1 billion off the deal. So instead of being 3.2, I think it was sorry, 4.2. It was 3.2. They knocked it off a clean billion. So it definitely does have an impact having these data breaches. I mean, because not only is it the data information being leaked that could lead to identity theft, but it's then the trust of your brand and what it's being known for. Moving on, SSL servers drowned in, it's called actually drown, but essentially it's a SSL vulnerability in the actual service, the server communication at SSL v2. That's all you need to know. If you're using SSL v2, move off of it. It says a patch now, you can get it fixed, but for the longest time, some of the biggest companies and servers that were using this type of communication were susceptible to this. And as far as were there breaches done that we don't know about from this method? Maybe. Nothing's been disclosed yet, but in the case of Yahoo, it took them a few years, so maybe we'll hear of breaches later on that were disclosed through this method, but it's just something to watch out for. All you really need to take away from this is don't use SSL v2, and if you are, patch it. FBI v. Apple was a big thing, the San Bernardino case. So essentially, serial murder happened in California, and they, found the phone at the crime scene, and they wanted the information from his phones, seeing if, any information they can pull, to build a case against this person. How did he do it? Did he have accomplices? The phone is going to be invaluable, right? And so they wanted to completely take over the phone and have access to it, and it had been encrypted, right? The murderer who was killed had been encrypted and had his phone encrypted, and basically Apple said, we're not going to give you a crack for it. We're not going to, Apple themselves couldn't uncrack it, only the person was. That's how they built it, right? And so they asked them to build a backdoor, and they're like, no, why would we give you a backdoor for this one person? It could, be abused for everybody. Of course, it was a wet dream for government. They wanted it so they could, potentially spy on everybody if they needed to, under the guise of, saying that, oh, they're a potential threat. It doesn't matter. If they have the ability for one person, they have it for everybody, and that's sort of the case. Anyway, Apple was like, no, we're not going to give it to you, and Apple did stand their ground, which was good. But we do believe that they just had a third party go around doing it for them. And so moving on to the Australian census fail, this was sort of a debate here. Everyone's blaming everybody else. Very, very interesting here. Basically, IBM's saying that it was a DDoS, but really what we believe happened is that it was everybody logging in the last day. Everybody waiting to the last minute and then trying to log on, and then the servers weren't built for it, and they crashed, right? And it was a complete debacle that everybody heard about. And I really, honestly, as a security expert, do not believe it was a DDoS, and that was just thrown around so everybody can blame a different factor and sort of get lost in the news and hopefully forgotten about. And so just to explain, in case you guys don't know how a DDoS works, Mirai, I'll go into that a little bit later. Mirai sort of uses a similar way, but instead of there being zombie computers, you actually, anything with an IP address. So with Mirai, you just replace those computers with the IP routers, DVRs, if you record your TV shows, and IP cameras, and all of those, they function for a purpose, and usually you can put like a little code of memory, and memory functioning as a botnet, it'll still function for the unsuspecting victim, right? The owner of the device. It'll still work to route their traffic as a router. It'll still work to record their shows as a DVR, or still record, a video feed as an IP camera. But then also the attacker, whenever he wants, usually at times when the victim may be asleep, will use them as conduits to request traffic at certain sites. And in tandem with hundreds of thousands, you're able to shut down sites because you've got gigabits per second of traffic. And sometimes petabytes. Mirai was able to do that. Ukrainian powergrid DDoS attack. They didn't actually get taken down once. They got twice in 1 year from, I think, Honey Bear, or the hacker group name, as they call themselves, that were able to shut this down twice through DDoSing. And it just shows that, in the future legislation, regulation will be there. Right now, when it comes to this, there's not really much security vetting in mind. Same thing with Internet of Things, right? We have these cool ideas of we can connect this to the Internet, manage it off-site, right? Where's the security in that? You know, a lot of people are just focused, putting all their money in functionality, really aren't worrying about security vetting. So cybercrime in the global political arena, so big, of course, be the American here, going to talk to you about Trump and the DNC rigging. You know, I don't know how to explain this, but yeah, it does, obviously, there were WikiLeaks. Email hacks were released showing that the Democratic National Committee was rigged, and they did not give Bernie Sanders a fair chance. He was shill. It was all Hillary. It was clearly rigged to where Hillary is going to be the Democratic nominee, and because of that, I think a lot of people decided, you know, oh, I'm not going to vote for Hillary because of that, you know. And it was this exposure that a lot of people feel was the final nail, like what done her in, because you know she still won popular vote, really close. But as far as electoral vote goes, she kind of did get creamed. Trump won in a lot of states that he was not suspected to win. You know, usually blue states, been blue for like decades, and he just barely clinched and won. And you know, a lot of people believe it was because of the leaks going out around Hillary. You know, and you know, you can argue there's so many different ways of, you know, it's political. You can have so many different stances about it. Some people probably thought, you know, it doesn't matter that it was hacked and she was exposed. People blame the Russians, right? People blame the Russians for meddling in the affairs. Ultimately, I would say it does look probable, but there is no proof. There is categorically, you cannot, you know, say for sure 100% that it was the Russians. It does look like that. Of course, they deny it. Even today, there was an article of Putin saying anything billed against Trump or being hacked or released by Russians is whatever. But you know, it does look like, yeah, there is some sort of play in there, and it's interesting to see, you know, the public's perception of that and how it changes. I mean, 2016 was a crazy year. I mean, you had Brexit, Trump becoming president. We'll see what 2017 turns around, but we're fresh into it. Beyond that, internet security, IoT. I'm sure you guys keep hearing about IoT, and it's a good thing to keep talking about because it's only gonna snowball from here. Seriously, the hacking of cars, that Jeep picture there, that was actually 2015, and that was when they hardwired into the CAN bus system. So essentially, they went into the infotainment port, plugging in the way you would to any sort of newer car with an infotainment, right? That accepts a USB, and from there they were able to get this, rewrite the firmware, like recode it essentially, so they had access to the emergency systems. And you know, it was interesting because they were able to do a lot of crazy stuff, like slamming the brakes, start the engine, all these sort of really nasty things that you could do technically on the fly, and they showed you. But they had 8 months they were dealing with the car and hacking it. We've progressed a little bit further now. In 2016, they were able to you know, through signal repeaters that you can buy, key fobs that are the proximity-based push to start. You know, these little key fobs you buy, they can tell if you're outside of the car and you can unlock it. They can tell when you're inside the car, push to start it. Well, you can, you know, what they did they tested all makes and models. They are all vulnerable. Doesn't matter if it's luxury, BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, Tesla. Yeah, they're all susceptible to it. What they would do is you would get like a router. You can just most routers have a mode called the signal repeater or a bridge. What you can do, if you don't, you can code the firmware, just download a different firmware file, make them into a repeater. So you put the key fob next to the router, right? And then you put the router and the key fob like way end of a warehouse, way far away that the key is definitely not inside the car, right? And then you walk up with another signal repeater, repeating that signal that you had the router send out, making it a bridge, and you just walk up with a signal repeater, this piece of hardware that you bought for $50, and you go up to the car, unlock it, get in, start it, drive away. Now it is only a one-time thing, right? Because it's a signal duplication. It's not storing the signal, so that is a limitation currently. We'll see in the future if they make some sort of signal stores that keep with the signal. And because right now all you can do is just drive once. One start, that's it. So usually it's only used right now for stealing a car and going to part it out and sell the pieces, right? Beyond that, we saw San Francisco Metro. They were shut down for a whole weekend because of a very embarrassing crypto attack. I will actually cover it. It was the hard drive cryptor. It works differently. It actually works on not at the OS level. It actually at the MBR, like master file table and MBR level, it will give you a fake check disk, because it blue screens the computer, restarts, goes to a fake check disk, and then does the encryption there. So you can't even boot into your operating system, and that's how they were able to embarrass the San Francisco earlier. I will cover it a little bit more in detail as far as the actual malware. So understanding the actual ransomware lifestyle, they have so many new variants being released. Polymorphism is key. That is like the focus right now. It's almost to the point where many families, each individual PC that they drop on is a change-up variant than like the previous signature. Like as far as signatures that most legacy AVs use for like definitions you have to update, like they would have to have a different one for every single variant dropped on a machine. And so that's just defeating the accuracy with numbers, right? And there's also sort of an ecosystem underground. I'll explain with Bitcoins when we go into attack vectors, where you have malware authors, or not even malware authors, people who just work on exploit kits, like work on finding vulnerabilities in websites to store malware. That's all they do. And they make money and then sell those hacked websites to actual cybercriminals, so they have a successful attack vector. I'll go into it a little bit later, and we're gonna talk specifically right now about phishing and exploit kits. So phishing, really interesting about some of the new tactics in 2016 that they're trying. So using JavaScript to prevent leaving a page is something that we've never really seen before. Also, plain text to avoid HTML analysis and in fact we found over the entire 2016 year, out of our 11 million sensory nodes and all of our customers using our software, we found that 92% of them are going to be presented with a 0-day phishing site annually, and we discovered about 58, 59% of those people will actually fall for it too. So some popular ransomware and phishing targets. We have you can see it's not just Australian people. Obviously, this is picked for this demographic, this presentation I'm picking. They are very local. Depending on where they're sending these email phishing campaigns, they make sure to geographically change who they're spoofing, right? We have ones for United States Postal Service where they have like, here's a download. Well, you have Australian Federal Police. Beyond that, New Zealand Post, and then they have like little triggers here to make you click happy, where they say you'll be charged $1.69 for holding it every day is past 7 days. And so they're social engineering tactics just so they can get you click happy. A lot of these, when you click them, they usually lead to like a document, right? Sometimes it's just an executable file where it's like, you should know right there, don't click it. Sometimes they're a little more craftier, where they actually give you like a .doc file, where you would think, okay, can't be a malware, right? And technically it's not. But then they have a macro enabled. And if you guys don't know what macro enabled documents are, what that means is you're allowing the Microsoft Word process to execute a set of actions that are described in the macro. And every macro for encrypting ransomware basically says, go and download this URL, save this payload, and run it silently. And you've enabled all of it because you clicked, go ahead and run the macro. So my best suggestion, definitely disable macros. I know a lot of people say, I have legitimate reasons for them. And yes, there are legitimate reasons to use macros, but you're posing yourself a giant risk, and there's usually very easy ways and workarounds to get what you want to do with the macro legitimately, that you should just go that route versus and completely shut off macros in the trust center of Microsoft Office. That's just my recommendation, because you will reduce yourself to a big attack vector. It's not all ransomware, but a lot of ransomware use multiple different types of attack vector, and if you're reducing just one, it's definitely well worth it, especially because it's free. Now moving on to exploit kits. So I'm going to talk to you guys about malvertising specifically. So 80% of all drive-by attacks in 2016. Now I'll explain what a drive-by attack is on the next slide, but essentially they attack Flash Player, Java, Word, and Silverlight vulnerabilities, right? To hack into legitimate websites and then simple iframe redirect. And they were able to make these people who just cruise the internet trying to find out-of-date, poorly created, easy to exploit websites to drop malware onto. All they do is then, once they find a website, they get it ready for any person they contract, like another malware author. So all they have to do is they work on finding sites and then giving it to a malware author to drop their payloads, right? And so it's an ecosystem. They don't ever have to touch or worry about creating malware with perfect cryptography implementation. They don't have to worry about dealing with ransoms and dealing with victims and gathering payment. They just got to work on finding all these websites that are easily to hack and then sell them off to malware authors who don't want to worry about having to do that. There's so many different facets to cyber criminal activity that you sort of just have specialized people working in one different area, and they feed each other, and they just take cuts of the ransom in bitcoins. And I'll explain that a little more later. Now, Angler did get shut down last June. Oh my God, was it popular though? And Neutrino took over, basically doing the same thing, but it increased the scopes to as far as what you have to be worried about is now plugins for your browser. So WordPress plugin is what we saw being used. So those of you who use WordPress plugin, make sure those are up to date. It's just a shame, all these different ways of being attacked. So let me explain this. Those of you who maybe were confused earlier while I was rambling about exploit kits, what does it mean to you? What is a user seeing, right? No joke, literally, this is probably the nastiest type of infection vector I've seen, and you should know about it. You're on a website, right? And legitimate website, and there are ads on the side, right? So this one is for Joseph Clothers, right? You click on it, you would think you would be directed to that website and be looking at some suits to buy, right? Maybe customizing some shirts and ties, and that's what you clicked on. And all of a sudden, while you technically are directed to that site that first hosted that has been hacked. They were maybe there was some exploit. Like I said, these people prowling for exploitable sites. That redirects you to then the malware landing page of that domain that's been hacked. The malware is then put on your computer and run. And the scary thing is, it's not as if it's like downloaded, like it's downloads at the bottom left of your browser, and then you have to click run. Because most of you would be like, "What's that downloading?" All I did was click on a link to shop something. No, it actually drops the DLL and then unloads that DLL's instruction into the browser's memory. So the Chrome browser, the Internet Explorer browser process, that will be what does the actual encryption. And so that's stuff that, it's very scary and you got to watch out for. And so explaining it here, yeah, cybercriminals submit booby-trap advertisements to ad networks for a real-time bidding process. You have to realize this is all done by algorithms. All of our ads and ads that are displayed to us, they're all done instantaneously through algorithms. There's no person behind the scenes going, let's sort it here, click in here. No, that's how this is able to happen so effectively. Is a lot of the times these malware authors, they'll create like a fake ad network that submits booby-trapped ads, right? But they'll submit legitimate ones for a couple weeks just so they can build a reputation, right? And then after they've built a little bit of reputation, then they slip in the nasty stuff. And so malicious ads rotate normal ads on legitimate, highly reputable sites. Users visit the site with an ad, and then their invisible iframe redirect to an exploit landing page where malicious code attacks the system, and almost always encrypting ransomware is installed. And we'll go over it, but this is a nice slide for you guys to explain easily on how that all works. And so now we're going to talk about the advantages of Bitcoin. So that's basically the core concept. Almost every single one of the ransomware variants that were big in 2016 used Bitcoin. In fact, I think all of them did. And the reason why is because it is so secure. Usually the money mules were like Ucash or MoneyPack, where you had to actually go out to a gas station and buy like a gift card, right? Scratch off the code and pay. This is like CryptoLocker 1.0 days, like 2013. Anyway, we're past that now. Now you're just paying Bitcoin, and the price of Bitcoin keeps going up. In fact, it hit about $1,000 here recently. And what they do once they receive a ransom sits technically, in case you guys didn't know, you can view the blockchain transactions. So you can see X address made transaction to Y address. You don't know the identity of X or Y, it's just a hash, right? But it's still scary to malware authors because they're worried that someone's going to be able to crack that, someone's going to figure that out someday. And rightly so, why wouldn't they be, who knows? Anyway, so what they do is they then go, another facet of darknet revenue generation, is people in the darknet will launder your bitcoins. You can just go to the darknet, give them X amount of bitcoins, right? And then what they do is they spit it through 1 million transactions, through a million different walled addresses that are brand new, created, right, and then out at the other end. All comes out at the end and all clean, and they shave off a small percentage for themselves, and that's how they get paid. So there's just like a huge ecosystem of people in the darknet sort of feeding each other. And so that you have malware authors who just work on infecting your computer, right, through once it's able to run on the system, how they encrypt, how they communicate the key to make sure it's secure, how they deal with customers to get payment, because it's about a 3% payout rate on average of infected victims. So moving on, TeslaCrypt. TeslaCrypt is currently shut down, but it's worth mentioning because 11% of all encrypting ransomware is done by TeslaCrypt when it was shut down. I mean, it's a major player in the game, right? A lot of things they started with first that everybody else followed with, specifically scope of files, how long they wanted to wait, like sort of late payment, even sort of CoinVault was the first one to introduce freebies where they gave you freebies. But anyway, this is the message here that they gave you. This onion link is what they saying the project's closed. Here's the master key for decryption, right? They're not sorry by any means. They'll probably just take an extended vacation, and they'll be back once they've spent all their millions of dollars making something even more prolific. I'm just guessing either two things. One, government agencies got closer than they would have liked, sniffing in places they're a little too close to home, so they shut down the project. I mean, they went for a full 15 months, which, in case you didn't know, is the longest an encrypting ransomware campaign has ever run. Locky is the closest one. Locky's approaching about a year right now, a year in February, right? Locky is hugely successful. I will go into it, but right now Locky is in a dry spell. Either they're taking an extended vacation or they're shutting down because maybe also people catching on. That's usually how it is. They want to get in, get out. So you're not going to see like staples of the business model of ransomware that are here for years. That's really not going to be what happens. So they also had, interesting of note, they were get past like these third-party crypto prevent solutions where they're just glorified group policies that are updated regularly. So don't buy into that. Don't think that you can ever be 100%, protected against crypto ransomware. I mean, really what you want to do is the best defense is definitely backing up your data, and we'll go into that with StorageCraft, because you can't ever guarantee 100%. Now, you can be a multi-layered approach, and you want to focus on each layer being 99% and reducing it out, but no one's ever 100%, and if anyone ever promises you that, go the other way. So Locky, holy smokes, Locky's a huge one. I'm sure we've all heard of this, worldwide rock star as far as encrypting ransomware goes. They have the most amount of people. We're talking like 90,000 victims a day, 3% payout rate. They were so broad that they started like changing the extensions. I'm sure you guys heard of Odin or .zepto or Osiris. Or they had so many different ones. They had that they were, basically making up names for Greek goddesses, or they changed Thor. They had Norse goddesses as well. Anyway, they were doing this because they wanted people to classify each individual extension name as a different variant, a different encrypting ransomware. And for a couple months or so, that was true. A lot of researchers were actually classifying it as a brand new ransomware out and about, right? And it's because they wanted you to lose scope of their operation. It was so big and so large that they sort of had to create misdirection for people trying to find out. And eventually people were looking into the code and they're like, hey, look, this looks almost identical to Locky. It's the same guys. So, and you have to realize now that Locky started out as sort of a small fry just doing macro infections through documents. They've progressed so far now. Now they're doing exploit kits. They're also doing like Windows script files, JavaScript, VBS, HTAs, Facebook campaign to Locky. I'll show you guys that right here. So spammers were passing around like SVG images, which is relatively new image format that is used today for saving vector images. And anyway, all that matters is SVG is XML-based code. It allows dynamic content, right? So when you click on the photo, what it allowed them to do was open up a fake website, right? And you can see right here, this website here looks like YouTube, right? Looks like YouTube, but it's not. Where it pops up, add this extension if you want to do this, right? And obviously some red flags here. YouTube doesn't require any extension to watch a video, and there's no icon there for that extension. That should be a red flag. If you're a developer making an actual extension you want people to use, you would think you'd have an icon there, right? But you have to realize not everybody's a genius, and people are going to click that. And how it works is also there's some worm capability. Once you click an add extension, it then sends that image to then every single one of your friends, since you were logged into Facebook clicking it. So it works like a worm. So if you've got a few hundred friends, you only need one of them to click. So you only need, like, a 0.1% ratio of people to fall for it and actually click and install and add the extension, and it keeps itself going. And then it leads to also a downloader that's downloaded onto your computer that then also later installs Locky, which is an encrypting ransomware that I talked about previously, and that's really the big scary part you need to watch out for. They have an affiliate program, which I want to show you the affiliate ID down there at the bottom, because they increased their scope on how many attack vectors they have, how many different ways they have to drop malware, that they have to give cuts to all these people, because, like I said, it's an ecosystem. They aren't working on the spam email with the Office macro downloader. They aren't working on the nuclear or the Neutrino exploit kits or any of the scripts that download it, right? All of that stuff is done by other people that they just employ, right? They try them all. And then they have an affiliate ID in the logs that's sent back to them. So when they're collecting all the payments of people who are inquiring, hey, I want to get my files back, I want the money, here's my code, right? They can look that up and go, all right, well, who infected you? Okay, I see number 3 infected you. I better go ahead and give 20% to number 3, or whoever that person is in their affiliate ID. It's just basically logging. It's showing that they have sort of a business model on who's do what. And yeah, as you can see here, I mean, the amount of money they were earning at 90,000 victims a day, 3% payout rate, right? Just under 3%. So they're making over almost $1.1 million a day, right? Per month earning $32 million, and almost at a year, almost $400 million, right? They've been going for about 11 months strong, so that they've made close to that number there, and it looks like they have died down right now. Maybe they're just on vacation, we don't know, but that's as of right now. Like, as of today, I'm seeing lots of articles saying huge spike drops in Locky, which is, unusual since it's been the #1 for quite a while. So CryptXXX. This one is the one that comes from that Malvertising. Remember I showed you guys the Malvertising, how you click and oh no, I'm malware now that's encrypting my files. That one leads to this one, which is CryptXXX, and that is the one almost exclusively used for Malvertising. So if you see anybody or hear anybody here with CryptXXX, unfortunately for them, they were on a legitimate website, clicked on an ad that they thought was fine, but the ad was booby-trapped. That's basically all that happened, and they really didn't do anything that bad, and it's a shame, because that one's, I feel like, the most destructive to the most innocent person. But it's a cruel world out there when it comes to getting your money. And it's moving on to Cerber. Cerber has been around for a while, but it is gaining traction now. We've seen more infection counts right now than when they first started out. And so they don't actually have a GUI. Gone really are the days of GUI. TeslaCrypt was the last ransomware to show you guys a GUI. Now they all just sort of just encrypt your files. You can't open them, and they leave a text file in every directory. Here you go. That's basically how it works. Cerber also working on the ransomware as a service. That was affiliate ID I was showing you with, like, who's do what. These guys that write these code that's so successful, no matter how much working on botnets and phishing campaigns and email campaigns that they work on individually themselves, and no matter how successful that is, they literally just through manpower and man hours cannot achieve the amount of money that they could achieve if they franchise it, right? That's essentially what they're doing. They're like, I've got a product already ready to go, it's all working. All you got to do is if you've got other operational botnets, other people you're emailing fake, spoofed, booby-trapped stuff to, that I'm not reaching out to, use my encryption executable. You'll get 70%, I'll get 30%, or it scales based on how successful you are, right? It's actually built into the code, and that's basically where we're at now. Is they sort of have franchises for this, where people are just any sort of attack vector they can, they'll just hand it to other people, and that's how they're able to make so much money. Crysis, very, very, very interesting. Move as far as this actually is able to defeat every sort of security vendor out there, because it's not really attacking, it's not coming through any way other than scanning telnet. Are there available connections through RDP, right? So it's just do brute force credentials on port 3389, right? So RDP, remote desktop protocol, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with it. Remoting into computers is pretty useful. We all use it in our daily work lives, right? And even my home life, I use it all the time, remoting into the basement from wherever I'm at. And anyway, they're able to just try basic. This is what it looks like, literally. They scan and telnet for IP addresses. They just try basic, logins and passwords, and it works. So what this means is that people aren't creating effective enough passwords, or a lot of the times, like an example. I know somebody that had a warehouse he would log into, right? And guess what the name of the computer was? Warehouse. Guess what the password was? Warehouse. It's not hard, right? That could be guessed, because the way Windows and RDP operates, you can have many, many login attempts before any sort of log or error or anything is sort of sent over to another user, to where you have quite a bit of time and attempts to get in. And once you do get in, right, you have access to the desktop. There are so many tools out there that once you have access to the desktop, they'll let you disable security. Even if you're on some group policy that doesn't let you have access to, like, right-click shutdown antivirus, you can run some script or do some modification to some file, or run some tool to elevate permissions. There's so many things you can do. You can just disable the security vendor, then drop your malware where you want it on the desktop, double-click it and run it, and boom, you've infected the computer that way. And since you have access to the desktop, you can then take a quick look across the network. Look, you have a whole bunch of other computer names on that network. You already know the network IP. You can try logging into those users and maybe guess their passwords as well, because they likely also have bad, password etiquette as far as, creating secure, and that's basically how it spreads. And it started out targeting mainly Australian and New Zealand businesses about 9 months ago, and it worked so effectively. This worldwide now, it's a big player, and it's definitely something you want to watch out for. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Now we're moving on to even more nastier ones that won't even give you your operating system back. So as soon as you are unlucky enough to get this executable and you run it, it'll blue screen the computer. It'll literally just blue screen. I'm sure we're all familiar with the blue screen of death. Your computer restarts, right? And then usually you would see something like this, like check disk on file system, where he thinks it's checking all the hard drive sectors. This is fake. This is all fake, and it's coded by him at low-level operating system. It's just showing off how good he is, and it's actually doing the encryption of every single file, not just files on your OS drive. We're talking every single sector of the hard drive, including the master file table. So that way, it's at the like low-level, like beyond operating system level, like the MBR master file table level, to where you can't even load the operating system. Once this is done, your computer only boots to this, because he modifies the boot. And then from there, you can't even boot the hard drive. You wouldn't even be able to pop out the hard drive and plug it into a Linux and be like, all right, let me just grab it from here. No chance. And so this is really nasty. In fact, this is what was used on the San Francisco Mooney, and they were actually able to get everything back up and running in a couple days because they had adequate backups. And so now I'm going to move on and hand it back over to Carl, who will talk to us about what MSPs and resellers can do to protect our customers. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Carl Hill.
Cool, thanks for that, Tyler.
Not a problem.
Pull up my screen here. Cool. So these are all fascinating, and I'm glad the IT community has gotten a sense of the broader cybercriminal landscape and specific ransomware that is currently making their rounds around their clients. In today's cybercrime climate, we need to take extra precautions to keep our customers safe, and that's done through employee education, next-generation cybersecurity, powerful backup solutions. So you can see here, the key thing is awareness of the cyber threat landscape. We need to be communicating that the risk is real so that your customers understand the importance of investing in cybersecurity, backup, and recovery solutions. And it involves basic cybersecurity training and understanding social engineering and phishing. So I think we all know, that the typical someone connecting in or calling up over a phone call and trying to work their way in or get passwords. And I think Tyler's pointed out some crazy things that go on here. So cybersecurity, we need to consider a multi-layered approach. So this includes firewall, antivirus, backup and recovery type approach. Choosing something that's easy to deploy and manage is obviously critical, particularly, for your partners across all of your customers. It needs to be easy to manage. And choosing next generation cybersecurity. So if something does get through, here's where StorageCraft can help you. Tyler has done a great job of pointing out the risks. So what is the problem we're trying to resolve, and why is business continuity planning so critical? Well, when we think of disasters, we typically think of the types of stories we see on the evening news. Floods, perhaps in Brisbane, tornadoes, hurricanes in the islands, maybe earthquakes in Christchurch or Wellington, fires in New South Wales. These are heartbreaking and tragic for anyone to endure. However, the untold disasters are the ones that can and do occur each and every day. These are more likely scenarios that often mean the difference between business, success, and failure. Notice on this one that 80% of disasters come from the form of simple operational application failures. And this is exactly where the ransomware, the crypto lockers would fit into this, 80% more likely that that's going to happen. And I think a lot of you could probably assume that that's fairly accurate in your environments. And this is where StorageCraft comes in and says, look, don't just think about off-site disaster recovery. If one of your machines get infected, we don't want to fail one machine off-site. We want to be able to recover that locally and continue operations. So yeah, you don't need a major disaster to require rapid system recovery. Every day, occurrences can bring system recovery down into a scene. Today's business continuity management still remains a critical weak spot for organizations of all sizes. And this is due to the fact that 85% of mission critical systems are still not adequately backed up. So that basically means 15% of machines are backed up, right? So that's not very high. 80% of loss is due to operational human error or application failures. Again, the ransomware would fit into that category. And 20% of loss is due to hardware, OS, security, power, and natural disasters. And as a matter of fact, did you know that 20%, of that 20%, only 3% caused by major natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, and fires. So very, very minimal aspect of this is a major natural disaster. And with data growth rates now doubling every 2 years instead of every 4 years, the ability to protect and recover data in mission critical systems is even more critical. And I guess perhaps the most telling statistic is 17 to 40% of backup restores actually fail. So if we go right back up to the top there, only 15% of systems are getting properly backed up. And now we're saying that 40% of them, the restores fail. So backup doesn't mean a thing if you can't recover. So it's really important. It's not a question of if, but when disaster will strike an organization. Those companies with the best business continuity plans are those who are best equipped to respond to the when part of the question. They are those who have put into place necessary infrastructure and continuity solutions that will allow them to recover from an emergency before it takes place. Those who think about the recovery after a disaster strikes are at real risk of survival, according to many who have been there before. Now, in recent news, we'll see how real and destructive simple ransomware attack can be on an entire organization. This is a screenshot from Homeland Security. And I think Tyler's brought a lot of screenshots through, but this is just incredible. He's talked about huge amounts of dollar signs. They're not going to stop. It's going to keep happening. So we've got to look at ways to protect and recover from this. Now, last year I did a roadshow around New Zealand, and some of the local things that we saw happening around there is in the New Zealand Herald. We're talking about the Locky ransomware, talking about ransomware holding the world hostage. We've got here a local Christchurch law firm that they were attacked. cyber threat locks down the Tauranga Council. So, you know, we've got local councils is really real, it's really relevant. The CIO, Locky ransomware activity ticked up. There's a lot of interest, a lot of heat. Australia Insurance Group, cyber insurance. So now you can actually buy insurance to protect yourself from cyber attacks. The register in the UK is talking about a kleptozeptor. So again, this is just a variant of what Tyler was talking about earlier. And this screenshot here, I think he actually brought up as well. This one here, it actually gives you the wiki links to the type of encryption they're using, and then they give you the link to pay them the Bitcoin. So it's just crazy, and again, it's not going to stop. So StorageCraft is the most comprehensive and reliable backup and disaster recovery solution available. And this starts with a reliable backup. The key thing here is to back up frequently throughout the day. If you've got, say, 100 employees for one of your customers, they've got 100 staff, and you get some sort of crypto locker at 4 p.m. In the evening, that's potentially maybe 7 hours of data loss. So 7 hours times 100 staff, that's 700 hours of data loss. So the key thing is to implement a solution where you can back up frequently throughout the day. Centralized management, this falls into the category we were talking about earlier. It needs to be easy. So StorageCraft have got a multi-tenancy based central management solution to monitor and manage your customers. And the next key thing, offsite replication. This really falls into a category of protecting your backups. We need to protect the backups on-site to ensure they don't get encrypted. We need to also protect the backups by replicating a copy off-site, and that will separate your data from where it might have been attacked and give you ability to recover on-site or off-site. And I guess all of this centralizes and focuses on recovery. We need to be able to recover quickly. You might be backing up frequently, but can you recover quickly? If it's going to take you 2 days to restore, your business is at risk. We need to be able to recover quickly. And with StorageCraft virtual boot technology, we can instantly virtualize our backup images for recovery within minutes. And the solution caters for virtual, physical, a wide range of hypervisors, desktop, server, Windows, Linux, and also the ability to recover everything into the cloud. So we've got a very comprehensive backup and DR solution. I guess the key points from today from StorageCraft is make sure you back up frequently throughout the day. You need to look at your RPO, your recovery point objective, and make sure you're not, if you're backing up once a day, there's a huge risk of data loss. You need to protect your backups, as we've talked about, and replicate a copy off-site. We need to ensure you can recover it quickly, your recovery time objective. And finally, test your backups. It's the only way you can be sure that your backups are working and that you can recover is by testing. So everyone, thanks for your time today. Here's our emails for Tyler at Webroot and myself, Carl, at StorageCraft. Really appreciative of Webroot to invite us along to this webinar today. After the webinar finishes, please ensure you fill out the 10-question feedback survey for your chance to win a $100 Visa voucher. If you've got to shoot off to lunch or shoot off right now, we will be emailing out the link after the webinar is finished. So just please ensure you get that done by the end of tomorrow so that we can pick that random draw. Now we'll just take some time quickly to go through any questions anyone's typed in throughout the webinar. Tyler will cover them off, and if there's anything around StorageCraft, I'll chip in there as well. So again, thanks for your time. If anyone's want to take the time now to ask any questions, Tyler and myself will cover that off.
I'm taking a look now, yeah, for questions. Thanks everybody for joining again. Go ahead and type them in now. I only see a few in here, most of which just people agreeing about Yahoo. It looks like, oh, okay. What do you see as the future for ransomware? IoT, definitely. In fact, just so you know, phones. We haven't seen encrypting ransomware, but we've seen ransomware because of far as permissions and what they're able to do so far. It's a lock screen, right? So far, we have a lock screen at the hands of Bitcoin. It's a lock screen you sort of can't get rid of, but a lot of us, maybe less than savvy, or sorry, more savvy than not, would know that you can boot your phone in safe mode, right? Or you can look up how to do it, and then from there you can remove it, uninstall it. It's like an app, right, that you install, and then you get tricked to installing, and it locks your phone and wants a Bitcoin back to unlock it. So I do believe, as of right now, we have not seen it. Down the road, we're going to see full-fledged encrypting ransomware on the phones for sure. We've seen it on also proof of concept, seen encrypting ransomware on like your believe it or not, like your Nest, your thermostat, your smart thermostat, your smart anything now. I mean, you're going to have refrigerators that tell you the weather and the news, or your your breakfast table as well. Beyond that, who knows? I mean, the Internet of Things is going to make almost every little thing connected to the Internet, and if you're connected to the Internet, you can't stop the signal, so someone potentially could. The proof of concept is going to be there. We're going to have some sort of vendor regulation, I believe, coming involved here in a bit with a lot of these things, especially with the cars, showing what that can be done. We're going to, with all the abilities that can be done remote over the air, it's going to happen in the next few years. Like elected officials will make legislation promising, vendors have to security vet, no longer just to focus on functionality. So moving on, what protection can be provided for IoT product in the future? As it comes, we're onto it. I do believe we're going to have Webroot for cars. You're going to be picking your antivirus for your car or something like that. Yeah, that's going to happen. We're already on mobile phones, of course, to help you there. But as far as that, as the market shifts and that becomes like the business model that has ransomware also shifts over to IoT, then we will see the protection move there as well. Right now, obviously, we're not seeing it. It's just proof of concept stuff. At the Black Hat that's showcased at conferences that people maybe for years don't go use. I remember a lot of attacks, especially the DDoS one used in the Ukraine. That sort of type of attack would showcase like a 2011 Black Hat. So it takes, while the vulnerabilities are still there, it takes a while before somebody to see it and use it effectively. So it's all about the shift and how long it takes for the market to move there. Do you think there will be a way to back up the devices? Yeah, I would with IoT devices like your fridges and your TVs and stuff, it would be a way to back up those devices. I would assume so. I don't know if StorageCraft can answer about that yet, but down the road, I would think, yeah, they would have cloud backup for sure. That's what I would think. I don't know if you can chime in here, Carl. Do you know about IoT backing up, or what the future with that is? With StorageCraft?
I'm not sure. I know StorageCraft have recently moved into the file-based backup and recovery for roaming laptops and that kind of thing. We've got our, obviously, the Shadow Protect, the key sector-based image backing up. But certainly StorageCraft is on a rapid growth and exploring these types of options. So yeah, absolutely. As kind of Tyler's mentioned, as the industry progresses and these things get adopted more and become at risk, it's certainly a viable business path to go down.
Okay, cool. Appreciate that. Thanks, Carl. Next question. I noticed a lot of the images show onion links. What's the likelihood of finding the decryption key there if infected? Not really anything at all. Onion links are unique. Yeah, they're just used to be a secure connection that they can't be traced as far as communicating with you, receiving money from you, stuff like that. As far as you finding your decryption key there, yes, if you contact the exact onion link that's listed in your encryption key. As far as you just going down there randomly to try and find a decryption key for somebody your friend has, no, you're still going to have to do the same way. You can't just buy keys and hope one of them works if that's what you were going for. You have to get the exact key. There's no really way around it. You have to get that exact key if the cryptographic implementation is done right. In cases where the malware actually fails and maybe it's visible in memory as it's communicating to the command and control server, I've seen some cases where they have bad cryptography implementation, and you can sort of sniff out the key as it's being sent. But that usually doesn't happen now. I mean, they're getting, like I said, they're perfecting their code to where that doesn't really happen. Is this just isolated to desktops and laptops, or are smartphones at risk too? I think I fairly answered that. Right now it is laptop, desktop. They're working on smartphones, just lock screen currently, but I have no doubt in the future they will be doing full-fledged ransomware on smartphones. Oh, encrypted from the cloud services. So yeah, that is a good question. I'm going to clarify here. When it comes to cloud-based backup, most cases, it's like a folder and subfolders, a series of folders, right, from one master folder that's synced continuously. So whatever you do in that folder, whether you delete, create, modify, that is then synced up to the cloud as soon as you do it, right? And let's say one of those files inside of there is modified, which is technically the definition of encryption. In some cases, they delete it and then create an encrypted file, but in most cases, it's considered modifying. Anyway, that sync is then pushed up to the cloud. So when you go to the cloud, you're like, oh my God, I've been hit by crypto whatever, and all of your documents are unopenable. You go up online to your online cloud backup, and all of those are unopenable because it's synced all of those. Not to worry, in most cases, as far as backups, cloud-based backups, whether it be whoever you have StorageCraft here as well, but obviously other names people use like even bigger names like Google Drive or Dropbox. I'm sure everybody, they have history snapshots, right? History. You want to be able to go back to yesterday's copy. And that's all I think you should just notice is that make sure that whatever cloud-based backup you used has history snapshots. I've seen some without them. Don't use those. But history snapshots, very useful because you can go back to yesterday or 2 days ago's copy and you know for sure it's good. Beyond that, where we have the more questions, we have...
I'll just chime in on that one, Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
StorageCraft in 1st December released Cloud Backup for Office 365. And exactly what Tyler's talking about there is we take a full backup at the start, and then we take a differential backup every 8 hours, and we retain that forever. So
yeah,
that includes
smart.
your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your email, contacts, calendars, and you can search back through anything. The retention isn't cleaned up, or the backups aren't ever deleted, so you can always go back to any point in time. And I do think that is a key part of any cloud backup is making sure that your backups aren't at a risk of getting infected.
That's a good point. I appreciate you clarifying there. I had hoped you had something like that. I'm glad you chimed in. Every 8 hours is great, fellas, because then you can make sure you still have a recent up-to-date file, but one that's not encrypted. So that's good. All right, moving on. Let's keep seeing a lot of questions. I appreciate it, guys. Keep them coming. If we can't get to them all, we will make sure any unanswered questions will get answered through email manually.
So I've got one here. What solutions for off-site replication does StorageCraft have? So StorageCraft, our primary backup product is called Shutter Protect, and that includes a complementary product called Image Manager, which is able to automatically replicate a copy of your backups to either a USB drive if you're rotating them off-site, to another NAS in one of, if you're a larger building in another building, hopefully, or it also includes the ability to automatically replicate a copy off-site, and it uses a replication technology called Intelligent FTP. I see someone else has asked about that as well. The key thing with FTP is it's not part of your network. It's not an SMB network. It's not available for CryptoLocker to attack. It's totally separate, and it's you have to authenticate into the remote FTP server. So Image Manager, the first thing it always does is verify backup. If a backup was to get infected, the verification would fail. It would not replicate that backup to the remote site. So our solution ensures that your remote backups are totally safe and protected from the local on-site copy, and we won't send an infected copy over the internet. So that Intelligent FTP is actually free. It's included with the Image Manager version 7, which has been around for about 6 months now. Prior to that, it was a licensed feature. So, really easy now. We've included that in the solution. And we've also got StorageCraft Cloud Services, where you can send a copy of your backups directly to the StorageCraft Cloud. That's currently boasting 5 nines of uptime. And, the premium plan, $88 a month, you can instantly, through a web page, virtualize your entire servers and network in the StorageCraft Cloud for temporary failover. And that's an end-to-end solution, so we can revert that back on site. So there's free options, and then there's very cost-effective, affordable options utilizing the StorageCraft Cloud that we have to offer for backup and disaster recovery.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. I think that is pretty much all the time we have. We're running out of time here. We do have a lot of questions. If you have any more, we'll reach out to you, or you can reach out to us. You have our emails here. But I want to thank everybody again for joining this partner presentation with Webroot and StorageCraft.
Thanks, everyone.